ever stopped to wonder if all those years and thousands of dollars you or someone you know spent on college actually paid off?
I mean, look around. So many people are drowning in student loans. And for what? A degree that might not even guarantee a higher paycheck or a better life?
And here's the thing. We're not just talking about the cost of tuition. We're talking about the lost time, missed earning opportunities, and the mental load of wondering if you're doing the right thing.
And it's so easy to feel stuck in the trap that college is the only path. We know, we've been there. But in reality, there's multiple ways to get ahead in life, some of which might even save you a fortune.
Today, we're breaking it down. We're going to talk about when college is worth it, when trade schools might actually be the smarter path, and our main focus, how to embrace lifelong learning to keep growing no matter where you're at in life.
And we're bringing you the data too. So you'll get the numbers on tuition, student debt, salary comparison, and the hidden ROI of different paths. This isn't just theory. We've actually lived it, and we've seen it, and we're sharing it with you so that you can make a smarter choice for your future.
We'll also share some actionable ways to maximize your education, whether you're cutting college costs, stacking skills for a bigger talent stack, or taking advantage of free and low-cost online learning. So buckle up, because today we're talking money, opportunity, and personal growth. By the end of this episode, we want you to be thinking differently about education, questioning the status quo, and most importantly, feeling inspired to take control of your own journey of lifelong learning.
This is episode 11 of the FI Crash Course. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Fi Guys podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of financial independence and personal finance. Whether you're just starting out on your journey or well on your way to financial freedom, we've got the insights and strategies you need to achieve your financial goals.
In each episode, we'll provide actionable tips and real-life success stories to inspire and guide you on your path to financial independence. So, grab your notepad and get ready to transform your financial future with the Fi Guys podcast. Let's get started. The Fi Guys is a podcast dedicated to providing general information and insights on a wide range of wealth-related topics. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not constitute personalized financial advice.
The content provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It should not be considered a substitute for professional financial advice. Your financial situation and goals are unique, and the information provided here may not be applicable or suitable for your specific circumstances.
We, the host and the guests of the Fi Guys, are not acting as your financial advisor. We are not aware of your individual financial situations, risk tolerance, or investment objectives. Any decisions or actions you take based on the information provided on this podcast are your own and made at your own risk. I may be a financial advisor, but I am not your financial advisor. And now that the lawyers are happy, let's get started.
Welcome to the FI Crash Course, episode 11. Today, we're diving into higher education and lifelong learning. More importantly, we're going to be talking about how to make smart choices to maximize the value of your education and embrace lifelong learning that lasts your entire lifetime. We're going to be discussing how your college degree may not guarantee financial success in 2025, why trade skill secrets might be the hidden path to wealth. And we're going to be talking about why learning doesn't have to stop at graduation. We're going to be talking about ways to make sure you keep your curiosity rich for your entire lifetime. But Dominic, as someone who did go to college, can you tell me, what are you seeing out there in the world?
Yeah, the post-college era is becoming a darker and darker one for those exiting that chapter. If you are someone who is looking for a job, or is someone who's freshly out of college or going into college or thinking about college, now is a great time to really plan your moves out. One of the things most people do wrong in their life is they let other people decide their life for them. We've learned on this podcast, and a lot of great knowledge and a lot of great books, is it tells us that one of the biggest regrets in people's lives is that, well, hey, I didn't have enough fun. I didn't spend enough time with my friends. I worked too much, and that I let other people choose my own path, right? And that's even scarier when you factor in, well, hey, you're actually going to be taking on loads and loads of debt, more money than you've ever seen in your life at that young age of 18. It's a very scary time. It's a very pivotal time in a person's life, with pressure, with choice, with what you will become with who you are. And that's a very scary thing. Today, we're diving deep into that, and I'm excited about this, right? This is episode 11 of the FI Crash Course. I hope that you guys have listened to all of them, right? That would be my dream. That'd be my goal. And it really puts you ahead of everyone else. So let's get right into segment one, Chris. I'm excited. I know it's a dark time. It's the dark ages for people exiting college. Right now, I just read a study the other day, actually, that said that people with degrees and people without degrees are almost at the same rate of unemployment, which is, it's insane, right? Except one is like 50 grand, 60, way higher in debt, which kind of sucks. That really sucks. So yeah.
That's pretty wild. And I'm gonna preface this because the first segment we're gonna talk about is when college isn't worth the expense. And I want to preface that with Dominic and I, the FI guys, we are not anti-college. Like, we're not saying that you can't go to college, but we are making sure that you follow the data and don't live in the way that you wish the world was. Live in the way that the world actually is. We all need to be able to do this. We need to be able to switch over from automatic to manual mode. And too many people are going through the motions saying, like, this is what people told me, so this is what I'm going to do. And if you're doing that, going through your life sleepwalking, you're always going to end up being in a place that you are like, how the hell did I get here? You need to wake up. You need to do that. And eventually we're actually going to have a full podcast on just that discussion. But I want to talk a little bit about when college isn't worth the expense and talk about current data points that we're seeing. So college enrollment. About 70% of US high school grads aged 16 to 24 are enrolled in college. That's according to statistics that were taken here in 2025. Tuition inflation shows us that college costs have raised 8% per year. And we all know that general inflation is around 3.5%, meaning that our college tuition costs are outpacing that more than double. So what does that mean? It means that student debt has been on the rise for the last 20 years, and it's getting worse. Today, the US student loan debt is over $2 trillion. That's $1,000 billion. That's $2,000 billion. That is an insane amount of money, with the average balance being just below $40,000. And there's 43 million borrowers currently in repayment plans to the federal government, to private loan facilities. And 10% of those borrowers are currently in default within 3 years of entering that repayment plan. I don't know how much more I can say from the data to tell you that this is, sorry for the term, fucked. Like, this is just awful. It's insane that this is the situation that we're in. So you need to be aware of these things. Don't just go to college because mom and dad told me to go to college, because my uncle told me to go to college, because if I go to college after 4 years, I will just be able to walk out and magically have a job waiting for me. That was the BS that we were all sold, and that my generation was sold, and we followed it through the T. And I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, we knew that it was kind of BS. There was a part of the back of our brain being like, I don't know if this is real, but I'm going to go ahead and have fun right now, and future me can deal with it. Future me can figure it out. And again, that's going through life sleepwalking. That's going through life letting other people can dictate your life for you. And regardless if they told you and you believed them and that they were the bad guys in that situation, you are still the one responsible for getting yourself out of the situation.
Absolutely. And it's one thing to be fooled and you had no idea it was coming. But it's another thing to know you're being gamed and still believe the lie and go on with it. Like Chris said at the beginning of this segment, we're not anti-college. We're super pro-learning. Super pro-learning. There's nobody more pro-learning than Chris and I. I would say there's nobody more pro, right?
Ever.
But 10 billion people. Nobody's going to be, right? But, and we're not anti-education. We're not anti-education. We're not anti-college, right? Chris went to college. I went to college. Kind of ironic. It's ironic. It's always the people saying that they did something that, oh, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it. Oh, but you have a degree. It's like, yeah, but you shouldn't do it, right? And I'll say this, right? These numbers are horrifying. These numbers are very scary, especially the line in there about private loans. That's a devious. But if you guys really want to have a stomach turning night, go on TikTok, go on YouTube, and look at people's reaction to their private student loans. It's bad. It's so scary, right? Would not recommend private student loans. But hey, I'm not a financial advisor. That's Chris. But yeah, it's dark out there. And there's other options. What are these other options, Chris? I have a feeling, I don't know, maybe it could be coming to us in segment 2. Is there a chance of that?
It is coming as a segment 2. And one thing I want to talk about just really, really briefly is how insane the system is set up to take somebody who is 18 years old, their frontal lobe isn't even fully formed till they're 25, and saddling them with 40, 50, 60, hundreds of thousands of dollars even in student loan debt. And student loan debt that is not able to be gotten rid of by filing bankruptcy. This one day, people will look back at this at the height of lunacy and say that it was so wrong that generations of people were willing to destroy the young so that they could continue to survive. And hopefully you understand what I'm saying with that and who the selfish generations are eating off of the young generations. And we're all just kicking down this can down the road. And I think that this is what comes into the place of like, when I meet young people and they're like, well, why even try? Why even try? And I get it. I understand the nihilism. I understand the impulse to say, why even try? F it. Let's just let it all burn down. And if enough people have that in them, then the world will burn down. Regardless if you were victimized or not, you still need to be the one to accept responsibility for it and move on. Because the person that victimized you, the chance of them coming to be your savior is near zero. And even if they did come to you and say, hey, I'm sorry for what I did, you are still the one that needs to put in the work. You're still the one that needs to help. And I'll give you a quick example. I was once driving home from work. I was exiting the freeway and there was stopped cars because there was a red light. And a guy came up at 60 miles an hour and smashed the back of my car. Luckily, there was no one outside the car, but from my trunk to my back door was smushed in. And my back was broken and apart. And yes, in that part, you can say, oh, Chris was the victim. Like he got hit. But guess what? Guess who didn't have to go through physical therapy? Guess who didn't have to go through all those things? The guy that hit me. He walked off and continued on his life. Regardless if I had any control or all of the control in that accident happening, where I couldn't get out of anything because I was sitting at a park light behind another car with no way to go left or right, it's still up to me to rehab. It's still up to me to figure out what I can do to move forward. It's the exact same thing with the student loans. The guy that hit you is not going to be able to do any of the work. The guy that effed you over, or the people, the group that effed you over to take out these huge student loans to have a shot at a good future, they're not going to take responsibility. And even if they do, it's not going to fix the problem. You need to fix the problem.
Absolutely. And we talk about it all the time. Everybody wants to be saved. Let's be honest. Maybe I'm not the most macho alpha male, but in my experience and everyone below me and everyone around me, everybody wants someone to come in and be like, hey, you don't have to cook dinner tonight. I got it. You don't have to do I got it. Yeah, hey, the bills, they're done. You're good. Everybody wants that, right? But like Chris said in the beginning of this episode, and I put it on my notes, we don't act on how we wish the world was. We have to act with what the world is. For us, I have to make dinner. I have to clean the dishes. I have to pay my bills, right? I have to be the hero of my own story. That's one of the things, if you can take away from today's episode, right? Don't wait to be led. Lead yourself. Learn. Act on those learnings and make the best decision you can. Because you never know where it's going to take you. And you never know how deep the hole of foolishness really goes. Because that hole goes deep. And it seems like it's never ending.
So maybe our listeners are now thinking to themselves, okay, Chris, Dom, you scared me. Maybe college isn't worth it. Maybe I'm in college right now and now I'm beginning to actually wake up and think, oh man, am I on the right place? And if I'm not on the right place, well, what else is there to do? Because I think that's the most pernicious part of this whole thing is that there doesn't seem to be another option. So we're here just to tell you that there are other options. You just need to have your mind open to it because you don't know what you don't know. And too many people go through life saying like, I know everything because if I didn't know about it, then I would know I didn't know about it. When of course, like that's a blind spot. And of course, you could never know. So I want to introduce trade schools. And I think when people talk about the trades, and I know this is for my generation, when you talk about high demand jobs here in 2025, electricians, plumbers, dental hygienists, HVAC techs, mechanics. Growing up, that used to be like, oh man, if you don't go to college, if you don't work, you're going to be a plumber. You're going to be an electrician. Like, how sad is that for your life? When nowadays you can go to school, you can have your degree, you can have your master's degree and still not be able to work at McDonald's, still not be employable at McDonald's, where the person that went to a trade school, did good work that is valuable, didn't put themselves in debt, and is now making $120,000 a year. No issue. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 9% growth in skilled trade jobs through 2032. While all the other jobs are looking like it's going to be a rapid decline with AI coming in, we're saying almost a 10% growth in skilled jobs. In these jobs that people have historically, and this is in air quotes, said is below my kids, is below me, just as a financial comparison. The median starting salary for skilled labor is $50,000 to $60,000. No skills, just coming in off the street. Hey, I'm here to work. What have you done before? Nothing. But I'm going to show up every day and I'm going to learn. $50,000 to $60,000. Do you know what the average tuition cost is? $50,000 to $60,000 a year. So you can either gain $50,000 to $60,000 a year, or you can lose it. The median starting salary for college grads who aren't in the STEM fields is $45,000 a year. Meaning you can go to college for 4 years, putting yourself into $50,000 to $60,000 debt each time, and come out for a lower degree or a lower starting wage than the person that just walked in off the street and went straight into a skilled trade job, making 15% less than they do starting. Trade workers often avoid student debt entirely. In fact, when I moved back to San Diego, I was looking into electrician jobs. And I was talking to Dominic about this off the air. And there are so many jobs that are willing to take you and pay for you to go to school while paying you to go to school and pay you to work. And too many people think, or they poo-poo at it, saying, why would I do that when I could put myself into debt and get a real college degree that can give me real skills? I can't think of something more real than being able to walk into my house, seeing that the light doesn't turn off and on, be able to disassemble the wall mount, figure out exactly what's going on inside there, fix it, put it back together, and 15 minutes later, my light works again. That is a real skill. So don't just go through life automatically believing that it's not good because my mom, dad, society told me that that's not a valuable skill. Dominic, before we move on to segment 3, what are your thoughts?
One of the things that I learned from what you were just saying is to really just question everything, right? Question why your parents would say that. Question why you would think that. Question, why are we telling you that? I think it's so important in today's society as, cognitive thinking declines. I think it's more and more important to actually sit with yourself, by yourself, and understand why you think this. Well, I think this because this, and this is this, and this is that, right? And kind of go down the rabbit hole and write out your thoughts and try and understand why you are the way you are without blaming anyone, while taking full accountability for your actions. There's a great book that Chris and I often reference in this podcast, and it's by Jocko Willink, and it's called Extreme Ownership. And it talks about how everything in your circle, take ownership for it. Even if it wasn't your fault, take ownership for it, because in some way or somehow, you have an effect on things, right? And it's so important from what we're talking about, right? Being an electrician is the right job for someone. It's the wrong job for someone. Being a marketing specialist, same thing. Right job, wrong job for someone. You might not know until you go, but when you go, it might be too late. So make sure to really sit with your own thoughts and understand yourself and take time to really make the right decision. But what I find so interesting is that life is so fluid. Like Chris, maybe 4 or 5, 10 years ago, you would have never thought, it's like, well, maybe I'll do a trade, right? That was never a thought in your mind. You probably would have been like, never. Why would I ever do that, right?
I
And I'm
thought it
not
was below
putting
me. I thought it
it's
was below me. And now here I am in my mid-30s saying, well, maybe I should go back and be an entry-level person, someone who I could be working along a kid who's 17 years old. We could be on the exact same standing. And if I have an issue with that, is that an issue with society or is that an issue with me? With thinking that I should be farther along, that I am so worthy, so noble. There's a speech by David Foster Wallace. He was an American author. It's called This Is Water. And Dominic, we're going to do a podcast all on this and how we can relate it to it. But in the speech, he talks about that every experience I've ever had, every experience I've ever gone through, and to our listener and to Dominic, you can think this shows me and proves to me undoubtedly that I am the center of the universe, that everything around me exists for me and by me. Because there's never been an experience that I have had that I was not the center of the attention. There's never been a moment that has happened that wasn't happening to me. For me to understand you, Dominic, you have to express that to me in some way and I have to hear it. But for me, it's automatic. I already know it. I don't have to explain to me why it happened. It already happened. And until we're able to wake up, that is our just normal system. That's the default setting. That is automatic. We need to be able to switch over to manual. I want to show us a quote from Mike Rowe. And I don't know if you remember Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, but I think I don't never want to make the Fi Guys a political podcast because that's not the journey of it. And I still think we can call out our governments, not just America, all of our governments for being willing to F over entire generations so that we can kick the can down the road, continue to go move on. Mike Rowe said that America is lending money it doesn't have to kids who can't pay it back to train them for jobs that will no longer exist.
That's powerful. That is a lot to unpack there. And I'm excited for that podcast where we expand on that. Wow. You know, it's so dangerous. We're always warned about it in scripture, in books, right? The danger of ego. And our parents, and I'm not going to put this on the parents, right? It's our fault, right? But me growing up, I would say, what if I did this? It's like, no. You're better than that. You're better than that. And I was always told that I was better than that, right? And it's a weird thing to hear it and believe it and to know that, hey, I deserve the best, right? But at the same time, dude, we're all on a floating rock. Like, come on, it's not that deep, right? It's not that serious. So sometimes you do have to reprogram the things that you were taught. And they were taught to you not out of malice, but out of habit. And not all habits are good habits, even the subconscious ones that we don't even know are running. And one of the scariest things we can kind of do and understand is, well, what are the questions we don't know to ask? And what are the things that we're doing that we don't even know are wrong? And maybe that's another podcast for another day. But I want to be respectful of the viewer's time. And let's get on to the next segment where maybe college is for you. I mean, we've crapped on college enough for the last 20 minutes. Let's change the pace. We both went to college. It changed our lives. It made us who we were today, right? What if college is for them, Chris? What do we do then?
If college is for you, I would say that's wonderful. I just want most people to be able to run the scenario of what is my goal? If the end goal is I'll figure it out when I get there, that's not a goal. You never know when you reach that destination. There's, in Alice in Wonderland, there's one of my favorite scenes in that movie is Alice is walking on a path and she gets to the Cheshire Cat. And she goes, which direction do I go? And the Cheshire Cat says, well, where are you trying to get to? She goes, I don't know. And she goes, well, then any direction you go will get you there. And if we continue to go through life saying, when I get there, I'll know, any direction you go is going to get you there. And why don't you choose the direction that isn't going to put you $50, $60, $100,000 in debt behind if you don't know where you're going? So if you are the person that needs to go to college because you see a vision and the only way to get to that destination is to go through college, you have to remember that first off, the average bachelor degree takes people 4.3 years to complete. Because that means that there are some people that are going a little bit longer because they switch their degrees. There are people that are maybe go a little bit shorter, not very often though. We also need to be able to make sure that we look at in-state public schools or out of state and private schools. Again, too many people go through life saying, I need to get the best degree. It needs to have the best everything. I know I did, and I think Dominic, you did too. I went to a junior college for the first 2 years. And then I transferred out. And I remember talking to my friends back then saying, hey, I'm going to go to junior college. I'm going to get all my GEs done, all that stuff. Then I'll transfer to a big boy college. I remember people saying like, that's not a good idea. Like you need to get the full college experience. Like you need to go there to get the full degree. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you're watching on YouTube on that back wall over there, that's my degree. It doesn't matter what I did for the first 2 years. And that degree doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. It doesn't mean anything. So rather than going through life saying like, I deserve this because I am so special because everything has shown me that I am special, what makes you the most special person in the world? Why are you trying to get there? And if you are the person who needs to go to college, can we look at AP courses when we're in high school if you know where you're going? Can you go into the exams that can get you past some of the credits? You can do dual enrollment in high school, community college first, and then transfer is amazing because what you do the first few years doesn't matter. All that matters is the degree. And then there's even online and remote programs that can cost 50 to 70% less than on-campus courses. There are so many ways around spending all of this money to get the true college experience, and that is very much in quotations. But you need to be open to saying that the traditional path might not be the path for me. It may just be the thing that may be the height of lunacy. We'll continue on, but Dominic, what do you think?
You know, going to community college was one of the most eye-opening experiences I've ever seen. When I went to, it's kind of funny. I took this math class that I needed for my degree. It was a Saturday class, 11 a.m., and it was the most ragtag bunch you've ever seen. I'm sitting there, I'm 18. There's people who are 22, 23, 30, 40. And we even had a kid in there who was like 11. He was like a prodigy or something. It was wild. I was like, what's going on? Like, what has happened? Like, I went from in high school, everyone's the same, roughly, right? At least that's what we're kind of told, which actually wasn't the truth at all. But I went to community college and it was like, wow, people are getting ahead. People are reinventing themselves. People are pushing themselves on a beautiful Saturday morning with this horrible math that I barely understand. It was high level math. I was like, this sucks. This sucks. But no, one of the things that I thought was so interesting is if you don't like what you're doing, just stop what you're doing. Nobody has a gun to your head, right? The constraints that you put on yourself aren't real most of the time. Now, if you have a kid and this kid is like, hey, I need food and you're my provider, well, that's a different story, right? You have a duty and an obligation to be that provider. But chances are, you know, that's probably not the case. But, one of the things, like I was saying briefly, though, you can always reinvent yourself and you never know what path life is going to take you down. One of the things that was so inspiring about community college was actually my mom, crazy enough. And this is going to sound like it's out of a movie. And Chris, this will make so much sense. You'll hear this story and be like, yeah, that makes total sense. When I was going to school for my degree, and I got a degree in music business, right? And I used it. It wasn't basket weaving, okay? I did actually use my degree. I'll say that. Everybody hears music and they're like, oh, loser. I was like, no. When I was actually going to community college to get my degree, guess who was across campus? My mom wasn't teaching. She was learning. She was trying to be a better writer. And she was taking creative writing classes and different things and poetry and different things like that. At 60, you're never too late to reinvent yourself. And she had already had a full career. And I always remember that. And that was always inspiring to me. It's like, hey, you're not locked into anything. Life is free. Life is open. If you want to go be a writer, be a writer. If you want to go be a businessman, be a businessman. Don't let things or people trap you into situations that you're not comfortable in. Because in college, that happens way too much and you're going to be one stuck with all the debt. Chris, what do you have to think about that?
No, that story makes me happy. The ability to reinvent yourself. I think too many of us, we go through life saying, I can't reinvent myself because that means that at some point I was wrong, that I didn't make the right path the first time. Because if I did the right path, that I never have to divert from it. I remember when I was younger and I was going to college and I wanted to take a year off. I wanted to go and explore and try. And I remember my dad saying, you can't take a year off because if you take a year off, you can't go back to school. And at the time, being young, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess you can't go back, whatever. But what he meant to say is it's harder to go back to school. And that's true. It is harder, but that does not mean it's impossible. And I think the words that we use are so important because your subconscious doesn't understand the difference between what you say and what you mean. It just hears the words and it doesn't really even work in language. Truly, it just kind of understands the meaning. But every time we go through life, like, oh, I can't do this. Well, it says like, okay, I guess I can't do this. We're never going to try. Where in truth, it's, I don't want to do this. This is going to be really hard. So I don't want to do it. You know, I mean, how many times have I've even myself as an entrepreneur, as a person of business who goes through life, it's like, oh man, I can't do that. Like I can't get on a podcast. I can't do that. The truth is, no, I don't want to do it. It scared me. And here we are now with a podcast, like doing it because we took the leap and just kept on moving. I want to go back a little bit to, oh, sorry, Dominic, go ahead.
You talking on fear, I think is so important. I had a blip that I had to say before we go into the next segment, but I heard this quote 3 days ago and it kind of changed how I saw things. In 100 years, 8 billion people from today's world are going to be dead. 8 billion going to be dead. No one's going to remember anything that you do. Chances, right? They're not going to remember your failures. They're not going to remember how you bombed that test or that you asked that girl out and in front of the whole cafeteria, you suck. No, you got to take chance. You got to take risk because it doesn't matter anyways. Go for it. Fear is only a construct of your mind. Danger is very real, right? There's a guy with a gun in front of me. That is danger, right? But me stepping up in front of a class to give a speech, that's fear. It can be controlled. It can be contained and it can be defeated. So just wanted to put that out there and just remind you guys, because it seems like fear is the main thing that controls all of our lives. And it's the greatest tool that people who are trying to take control of you will use. So back to you, Chris.
I want to get back to people that are going to go to college and they're listening to this and they're like, Chris, like, we know where we're going. And I would still say, like with AI, if I had a kid right now and they're asking me, Chris, what, or Dad, what school, what should I learn? I would say, I literally have no idea. You need to learn everything that you possibly can and learn how to work with AI. Because right now, the average STEM jobs, science, math, engineering, those jobs are coming out with an average salary of around $75,000 a year starting. Again, that's not much better than the trades craftsmen. So I'm just going to make that argument. But liberal arts degrees, those people are coming out to starting jobs that are around $45,000, less than those degrees. But the nice thing about the liberal arts degree is that that's where most entrepreneurs come from. That's where most lifelong learners come from, is from those liberal arts, because liberal arts teaches you how to think, how to learn and to grow. We need to continue to grow. We need to continue to learn. And if you are the person that goes to college, I want you to also know that there are ways to reduce your costs. On average, people receive around $6,500 through the FAFSA in merit-based tuition or reimbursements. And that doesn't mean that just because that's the average, that's what you have to get. There are so many ways, even when I was in college, to write in to get different amounts of money, to get little grants that were maybe $1,000 or $2,000. And I remember looking at that, and this is just a mental heuristic that we all have in our brains, where it's, hey, if I'm spending $40,000 and someone says, hey, I can take $1,000 off, but you have to write an essay, you'd be like, well, it's $40,000. What's another $1,000? But if you think about it in truth, if someone was to say, hey, Dominic, there's this tuition thing. It's only $1,000, but if you write this essay, I'll access it's zero. You'd be like, oh, of course I'm going to write an essay. It's $1,000 for 2 hours worth of work. With ChatGPT, it's $1,000 for literally no time at work. Yeah, quiet. Don't tell anybody. But we all have this mental heuristic of like, well, I wouldn't do that. If I was to buy a $10 candy bar and as I'm leaving, the person says, hey, if you sign this, we'll take 10% off. I'd probably do it. But if I was about to buy a car and someone said, hey, it's a $50,000 car, let's just add in another $1,000 or something. At that point, you don't care, but it's still the same $1,000. It doesn't matter how it happens. You need to be able to figure that stuff out for yourself. So there are ways to continue to get grants, to get money from actually looking for that information. You can work while in college, despite what your parents tell you. There are ways to go through work study programs. And there's a lot of jobs that are willing to pay people to go to college. So sometimes skipping the college degree, going into work, your work will pay you to go to college and you don't have to worry about any of it. And you get to get paid while getting educated. There's so many ways around it. I just don't want people to ever go and say, well, I have to go to college. I have to put myself in debt. I have to do all these things. There is nothing in life that you have to do.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, you got to save as much money as you can, and in this area, right? Those early years of saving and investing are so important. We really haven't talked much about investing for the future monetarily, right? This is all within the mind, but yeah, it's very important. Like you said, if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, if you write me this essay real quick, I'll give you $1,000, bro." I'm locked in. I am so locked in. You kidding me? Yeah, I'll do it. No problem. So make sure to use your mind, like always, and get that financial aid. But I love what you were saying about, getting a job, maybe having the job help pay for it and all these different tactics and tips and tricks. I think a lot of people have been down that road and heard a lot of it. And just, it's good to hammer it in. It's good to hammer it in.
I think it's just important to say that there is an alternative to the standard path. Just because the standard path is standard, that doesn't mean that it's good. Just because the average person is doing something, that doesn't mean it's a good thing. And this is the main point of this entire podcast. It's lifelong education. Even if you choose to go to college, to not go to college, to go to a skill trade, whatever, you need to continue to try to learn and grow, to continue to try to evolve. Too many of us, I've talked to so many people that are older and like, hey, what's the last book that you read? And they're like, I don't know, the last book my high school made me read. And that's so sad, to close your brain off. 87% of US workers say that ongoing learning is necessary in today's age to stay relevant. So maybe for grandma and grandpa, Uncle Jim, they could go ahead and go to college once or just get a high school degree, and that worked for their entire life. But today, things are moving so rapidly, especially now with the advent of AI, and now we're even talking about quantum computing, that you have to be able to adapt and move quickly. And this is where I want to talk about this concept of talent stacking. We say it all the time on the podcast, the aggregation of marginal gains, getting 1% better, trying to get just a little bit better in a bunch of different aspects. Because I don't think that the old adage of just be really good in one thing, and that's going to set you up for the rest of your life, is going to work anymore. If you're the person that's like, I do taxes and I'm really good at taxes, just the best person in the world at taxes, AI is coming for you. You need to be really good in a lot of different things. That's the only way. That's what makes you a master of none. That's what makes you an individual, is that you're good in being able to publicly speak, being able to talk about finances, being able to be a great video game or gamer, being able to have all of these things is what makes you unique. And that's the one thing that AI can't take away from us right now. Your unique skill set that makes you, makes you likable, tangible, relevant to other people. You need to build those skills for yourself by going on a journey and continuing to learn every single day. I'm not telling you to go from where you are right now to college degree, master's degree, anything. I'm just telling you to get 1% better. Just try a little bit to learn. And there are so many ways to do that. Podcasts, YouTube videos, online courses. A lot of the information is bad on there. I agree. And you need to be the ability to sift through the good and bad information. Since leaving college, I have got financial licenses. I've got coaching certifications. I've started a freaking podcast. Like, I've done so much learning outside of college. And I would say that all of the learning that I've done was so much more valuable outside of school than it was inside of school. The stuff I learned in school might have been a good foundation, but it's nothing compared to what you learn outside. But you have to keep your mind open to it. You have to keep on wanting to learn and know that you're never actually there, that it never ends.
Couldn't agree more. Real school starts when school ends. With that being said, what else do we have, Chris? Is there anything else you want to touch on before we kind of wrap up today's episode?
No, I just want people to have that learning mindset. follow your curiosity, build the interconnections of how you see how, oh, if I learned this in this subject, it can apply to here and apply to here and apply to here. That's something that AI can't seem to do. It can't take these generalized knowledge and apply it to different things. We use this quote a lot, but I'm going to say it again. If you know the way broadly, you'll see it in everything. And the only way you can know the way broadly is by learning everything, by trying to figure it out and then seeing that the same knowledge applies to all of these things. If you don't know what I mean, stay on the path, keep on learning, and eventually you'll be like, oh, I finally get what he's talking about there. And here's our action step to our listeners, because if you're listening to us, that's wonderful. Please continue to do so. And you need to take action, because listening to us is not going to change your lives. Taking action and learning is going to change your life. So if you're a high school student, I want you to just take a moment to consider if your college degree or the college that you're right now looking into is necessary. If college is right for you, are there any ways that you can start to look to reduce the cost, explore scholarships, or even plan for your return on investment? Because college is an investment in your future. And there are many investments, even today, that are not good investments. And you have to be able to make that decision. Just because it's an investment does not mean it's a good one. If you aren't in high school and you're a working professional, I want you to take one free online course within your curiosity for the month. And hey, I have a great course for you. It's called the FI Crash Course. You're actually listening to it right freaking now. So if you want to, go back to episode 110, start the course again, be able to listen to that information if you haven't heard all of them. And you can use this time for micro learning, 20, 30 minutes a day to listen to a podcast, to listen to an audiobook, to build your skills, to read. Too many of us now are driving. I drive so much. And whenever I'm driving, I use my windshield as the classroom. I have a headphone in my ear, only one headphone so I could hear. And I'm listening to audiobooks. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to anything that I possibly can to gain knowledge. Is it the best way to learn? Maybe not. But it's better than just sitting there and listening to the radio and getting upset with traffic. At least I can feel like I'm making progress. So I challenge our listeners to take one of these concepts we learned and apply it this week, today. Because these micro moments, these aggregations of marginal gains, marginal because they're so small, so minute, you can't even see that, like how much you've grown. But you add up a lot of a little thing and it makes something pretty damn big.
With that being said, guys, don't forget that learning isn't about knowing more. It's about becoming more. We're the Fi Guys. We'll see you on Friday's episode. And I hope you guys are enjoying the Fi Crash Course. I'm Dom. He's Chris. I'll see you in the next one.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.